Welcome to China Tech Talk, the weekly discussion of technology and startups here in China. I am John Artman, as always, joined by Matthew Brennan. Not for this introduction, however. So this week we are joined by Heatherm Huang, the founder of a company called MailTime, that they do email analytics to look at purchasing behavior and do some big data around blockchain and provenance of that data. However, we're not talking about that today. Actually, what we are going to be talking about is one of his first companies that he worked on called TalkBox. You know, everyone knows that this, depending on where you fall in this argument, perhaps one of the best features of WeChat, or perhaps one of the worst features of WeChat, is the push to talk feature. Well, Heatherm and one of his first companies, TalkBox, they actually were one of the first to implement this type of feature and got a lot of traction because of it. However, if we look at the landscape now, well, TalkBox isn't there. And so we're going to find out what exactly TalkBox was, how it competed with WeChat, and also just kind of looking back in general at the previous landscape of chat applications in China. You know, it's easy to forget that there was a time before WeChat. There was a time when even Xiaomi had a competitor in the market. And so we'll be talking with Heatherm about TalkBox, about WeChat, about MeTalk, and just looking at the history of chat messaging apps in China. Well, Heather, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. So one of the first questions that we like to ask all of our new guests is to give a brief introduction of yourself and tell us a little bit about what you're doing and how you came to do what you are doing now.
No problem. Hi, everyone. Yes, my name is Heatherm Huang, and I'm a designer background, like serial entrepreneur. I got involved with like 3 startups in the past decade. So I started my first startup in 2008. That was 10 years ago. So I started 3 startups in past 10 years. From like UGC content providers to social networking to big data to blockchain, just like every other type 3 entrepreneurs. And I started my first startup like in Shanghai, and then in Hong Kong, and I moved to San Francisco like 4 years ago, and then I recently moved back to Hong Kong because of Trump's like very unfriendly immigration policy. Yeah.
And so, what are you doing now? Like, what's your startup now?
Yes. My current startup is called MailTime. It is an email messaging app with a big data engine. Yes, we analyze consumers' purchasing behaviors from the email receipts, and then we generate consumer insights for hedge funds and other investors, and also the brands they want to monitor their computer sales. Yeah, and also with the blockchain technology that the data buyer, they can trace they can trace back the data.
Interesting.
Yeah, and the users can get reward. Yeah.
And so, what were your previous two startups that you were working with?
Yeah, so basically, I started my first startup in 2008. At the time, I still at college. So my first startup was an online broadcasting startup. We create a video a day. We make around 1,000 videos for around 3 years, and it was actually a very popular online program. That it was an animated a joke video a day. So we got around 1 to 2 million views per video, over the 3 years period of time. Yeah, so that was the first startup. And then we started another startup called TalkBox Voice Messenger. It was a push-to-talk messaging app. It's pretty much like the WeChat today, that you can send a push to talk message to the other side. So that was that was our original idea in 2011, and then so it ended up with around 13 million users, and then because of the very tough competition with WeChat, we shut down the company in around 2013. Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's really what we want to cover today, Heatherm, is about TalkBox. I'm sure for many of our listeners, outside China, they probably may not have even heard of TalkBox. So you've just given a brief description of how the app worked. It started in 2011, and it's a push-to-talk messenger. But if you can just describe a bit more about, how the app worked,
Sure.
and what differentiated it from like WhatsApp or WeChat or other messenger apps that people are more familiar with.
Yes, TalkBox was my second startup experience during like late 2010 to early 2013. So TalkBox was the first push-to-talk voice messaging app on iPhone that launched on January of 2011. So it was like a walkie-talkie kind of like app that you can send a voice message with a simple push to talk, and then the message you send will become like conversation bubble that you can press the bubble to play the message. That was the original idea. So we launched the app in 2011, like early 2011, in January of 2011. In just 2 months, it became the most popular social networking app in China and Southeast Asia. During that period of time, we got around 200,000 new users every day, for around 2-3 months. And at the same time, the WeChat and MeTalk app they just launched, it was without the push-to-talk messaging feature. It is pretty much like other messaging apps like Kik and also the WhatsApp. At the time, it was like a text-only messaging app. It's like Kik. So the MeTalk and WeChat app, they both added the push to talk. So basically they copy, so they follow the TalkBox feature and they launch their push to talk version around April and May in 2011, which was like 4 to 5 months after the TalkBox launch. So I think MeTalk was a little bit earlier before the WeChat added the push to talk feature. So basically we were first to launch the push to talk feature for the messaging apps, and also and the MeTalk and WeChat app. So they pretty much they first copy the Kik app that they launched a standard like messaging app, and then see the huge growth of the TalkBox, and then they added the same push to talk feature around 4 to 5 months after that.
So to summarize for listeners who aren't so familiar, Heatherm's mentioned a couple of apps there. One of them is MeTalk. So back in this area, you can correct me because you'll probably know better than me, Heatherm, but like my understanding is Kik Messenger in 2010 became incredibly popular in the States, and it had almost overnight success. I think they gained like 1 million users in some crazy amount of time, like a couple of weeks or something.
That's why the MeTalk and WeChat they first copied the Kik app.
Right. So that was what really sparked off this whole wave of companies in Asia going into messaging, or at least in the China market and the Hong Kong market. Would you agree with that?
Yes. It was very interesting. It's a very different market. That the WhatsApp and Kik was very popular and very successful in the Western market, right? But when it comes to the Asian market, like Kik and also the WhatsApp wasn't less success until the success of WeChat that dominates the market, right? So there is a very interesting reason why. It's because at the time was around 2010 to 2011, right? So you just mentioned that because the success of Kik and WhatsApp, it was actually the first, actually the first, so basically at the time of 2011 and 2010 and 2011, it was the period of time that smartphones like iPhone and Android phone, they start to replace the feature phones. And also those fake feature phones like, just like Nokia Symbian system, right? So when the iPhone and Android phones, they start to come to the market, it comes with the full keyboard, right? So basically it comes with the A to Z full keyboards, right? But the interesting thing is, in the Western countries, just people like you, like full keyboard was actually a very, very, very good product for you because in your words, like you type the English words with A to Z, which was like what you see is what you get, right? But in the Asian markets, people don't usually communicate with the English words. So they communicate with their own language, like Chinese, Japanese, Korean, right? So so typing the Chinese words and maybe Korean words, Japanese words, it wasn't like the English words that was like what you see was what you get. So you will need to use like pinyin or something which was a combination of a couple words, like a combination of couple like English letters. They can actually transform into a Chinese word, right? So so it was interesting that when we first launched the push to talk feature, the reason why was actually I was trying to teach my parents to send a message to me with like Skype or with like WhatsApp or Kik, but it wasn't that easy to do because people like my parents' generations, they may not be. So they didn't actually. So they didn't even learn how to type the Chinese words on the computer. It's even more difficult for them to type on a phone, right? Like even it is a full keyboard smartphone. So so I think why the push to talk feature can be very popular in Asia countries is because of that for those generation of people, they don't need to actually type they don't actually need to type the full words in Chinese or Japanese or like Korean.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that people don't realize at first that because the explosive growth that happened with your product with TalkBox was because there is a large group of people in Asia, certainly in mainland China and Hong Kong, who actually don't use pinyin. Pinyin, for those of you who don't know, is the Romanized alphabet version of how you would write words in Chinese using the alphabet. And so if you don't have that, there are various input methods apart from this. Often phones have a way that you can actually draw characters whether you want to input them, right? You can actually put the strokes in and it will start to recognize what you're writing and suggest characters for you, and then you pick one eventually. So that's another system that's used on Chinese phones. But all of these are kind of a little bit awkward, and if you don't know pinyin, actually, and slow, and certainly when we're talking about 2010, 2011, this time, phones, we're talking about early iPhones, we're talking about early Android phones, maybe, it's even more awkward and a worse user experience. So it actually it makes a lot of sense that why your particular solution with TalkBox would suddenly get explosive growth and then be copied a lot, because it actually makes a lot of sense. We also see this with like things like QR codes. Why I think it's a big reason why QR codes are so popular in Asia, is because this sort of the Roman alphabet doesn't make so much sense when you're in Japan, or if you're in China.
Yep.
So that was the inspiration for the app then? But that was the core. Why you came up with the idea of TalkBox, because you saw this problem.
I think that was So basically, I think that was one of the major inspirations. So basically, at the time of 2010, 2011, the smartphones start to take over the market. So basically, people start to switch to the smartphones, right? And then I also bought a smartphone to my parents. But so before the smartphone period, I think the Nokia phones, you can still use the data to get online, but my parents' generation, I don't think they will do that. So basically, my communication with my parents was mostly through a phone call, not even the SMS, because you need to pay for the SMS, and it's also very difficult to type the Chinese characters with the 9-button keyboard on a Nokia phone, right? So but when you switch to an iPhone, people start to get data on the phone, and they try to find cheaper and there's even a free way that they can actually communicate and send a message for free, right? So yes, in the Western country, it first start with the WhatsApp and the Kick app. It was introduced first to so the Kick and the WhatsApp, they were introduced as something to be replaced the SMS, right? So you can send an SMS for free. So that was the original idea of the WhatsApp and Kick app. But also I was mentioned earlier that with the smartphone you have the full keyboard, which was very, very good for the Westerners, that you can type the English words way more easier than on the traditional Nokia phones with 9-button keyboards, right? And then but when it comes to China, even before the MeTalk and WeChat, they try to copy the Kik or WhatsApp into China, but they didn't success because the reason I mentioned earlier. There was another interesting things that why iPhone was so important. It was because iPhone was the first smartphone that introduced the push. The iPhone was the first phone introduced the push notification feature, right? So before iPhone, there were a lot of people, they may do QQ on their mobile phones, like the Nokia phones. But the QQ on Nokia phones doesn't come with the push notification when you are offline. So it couldn't be replaced. It couldn't replace the traditional SMS thing, because when your friend send you a message, you didn't get a push notification that it's not in real time. So iPhone, when iPhone first introduced the push notification feature, which leads to the success of the WhatsApp and Kik, because they were the two major apps that totally benefit from the push notification on the iPhone. And then when it comes to China, even before the MeTalk and WeChat, there were a couple other apps also copy the WhatsApp and Kik app in China. But as I mentioned earlier, that the Chinese generation, the Chinese people, so at the time, very few Chinese people, maybe only the young generation, they learn how to type pinyin on the phone. But the older generation, like my parents' generation, they are finding hard time of like typing the Chinese characters on the smartphones. So that was why we first come out with this push to talk feature. That was because when my parents trying to communicate with me, they are trying to deliver a message to me and seeking my reply, right? So if like what you can do to make that experience as easy as possible is actually to record it and send it. Just like walkie-talkie. So that was the original inspiration of the thing.
It's really interesting because it's kind of like the difference between a call and an email, or a call and an SMS. It's asynchronous, and so because I was going to ask. I mean, I think you talked about it a little bit before, but one of the things that I was going to ask, and then I realized that you've kind of already answered it, is what about a phone call? And it's really interesting because basically with push to talk, it's the asynchronicity of a text message, whether that's through WeChat, MeTalk, or even SMS, coupled with the kind of like the real time. What's a good way to put it? Emotive ability of a phone call, right? Because the problem with text messages most of the time is that it's really easy to misinterpret, because you have no idea what's the emotion behind what people are saying. Whereas if they just use their voice, well, it's very, very clear. And so obviously, of course, like as you were saying, it's about not having to type, and that's one of the big reasons that I end up using push to talk a lot, is that because I just don't feel like typing something out, and sometimes it's just I have an idea that I need to somehow express. I don't know how to express it, and it's going to take forever to be able to type it out. But you can just say it very, very quickly with that type of feature. But I'm curious, and so looking at the development of TalkBox, I mean, did you guys have any contact with WeChat or with Xiaomi that they're in their MeTalk development team?
Yeah, so of course. So when we launched, like after we launched the TalkBox app, and so I just mentioned earlier, within a month or two, we already became the most downloaded and most popular social app in China and Southeast Asia market. So after that, all these VCs and all these strategic investment funds, they all came to us. They try to be part of the TalkBox. They try to invest, or they try to buy out the company because of the early success. So not only Tencent and Xiaomi, I think every other famous Chinese the internet phones and the VCs, they all came to us. They all So we may get investment offer every day or every another day at a period of time. So we were deeply involved with negotiations and talkings with every one of the Chinese tech giants, like Tencent and MeTalk, Tencent and also Xiaomi. They will also they all want to they all try to invest or even try to buy out the company. And every another company, every Tencent competitor in China, they all want to do the same. They may see this is an opportunity that you can actually use this as a weapon to maybe fight with QQ, because WeChat wasn't that success yet. They may think it was a very rare opportunity that you have a very good weapon to fight with QQ. So we pretty much talk to everyone on the market in a game. And actually, at the time, not only MeTalk and WeChat, they were developed by Xiaomi and Tencent. I think every other internet giants, they all come out with a similar app. There was actually an article at the time called like thousand messaging app war, like a war of thousand messengers. So I think there were at least 100 of different like messaging apps, which was pretty much the same, and they're backed by like different like internet like phones, and some of them were actually very strong and very big like internet companies, like Alibaba, Baidu, like every one of them, they come out with a similar app. But by the end of the day, only WeChat was the successor, right? So only WeChat they survive on the market. Everyone else like that, even the MeTalk.
Right. For those who are the listeners, we've mentioned MeTalk a couple of times. Just to clarify, MeTalk was made by Xiaomi. Actually, it was. To my understanding,
was before actually the Xiaomi phones. So basically, the MeTalk was actually one of the very first product of the Xiaomi company before they launched the Xiaomi phones. So at the time, I think they have two products internally with the Xiaomi company. One is the MeTalk, the other one is the MIUI. And the MIUI, it was a ROM of Android. It was a modified ROM of Android phones. So, and then they introduced the Xiaomi phones maybe a year later.
Right. So Xiaomi actually, this is pretty much their first product. It's hard to think of it now because we know Xiaomi. We associate them with creating, Xiaomi stores and a hardware company. That kind of says they're an internet company, but at the beginning they really were an internet company. They were developing. This was their flagship app, and it was actually doing quite well at one stage, right? It was along with TalkBox. I think WeChat, TalkBox, and MeTalk were kind of the three big players at one point, right? In 2000.
By the time. 2011.
Right. So, this leads on to the next question, which is the really key here. This was a really critical time in the Chinese mobile internet history, maybe the most critical time, right? Because it's really early days, and messaging ended up being the killer app on the phone. And WeChat won this war. Mm-hmm. What were the factors behind this in your mind? Because you got a front line. How did this war play out? How did this 1,000 app war play? What were the real driving factors of why WeChat won this?
So it is actually very simple. It was because of QQ. So basically before the WeChat, Tencent was already the number one like messaging company in China and even in the world. So they have their most popular like messaging app called QQ with more than a billion users. I don't know the number at the time, but they already dominate the messaging market in China, right? So, but when it comes to mobile, QQ, QQ has a mobile version too since very beginning, maybe like 20 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, they already have a mobile version on the Nokia phone and even on the feature phones. And when it comes to the iPhone, Android, they also have their own like QQ for iPhone and for Android. But the QQ for iPhone and QQ for Android at the time in early 2011 was a very, very, very bad app. Because so if you don't familiar with the Chinese internet history, that the Tencent focus in 2010 wasn't the messaging thing, wasn't anything else. It was the Weibo. It was like the Twitter kind of service in China. So their biggest fight wasn't the WeChat versus MeTalk or like anything else. It was the So there was the Tencent Weibo versus the Xinang Weibo, right? So basically, they do have a QQ app for iPhone, but it sucks. I remember it didn't even come with the push notification feature. If your QQ was offline, you didn't turn on the if you didn't run the QQ app on the background, you can't even receive the real-time message. So that was a very stupid app. But I was actually talking to the people who involved in the QQ app, that project. They don't care because they think they are dominating the market. Like no matter what kind of app you provide to the users, the user have no other choice. So they will use it, right? So they don't care about the user experience because they think their major fight was actually the Tencent Weibo. So they are trying very hard, and they spend all the resources on the Tencent Weibo to fight with the Xinang Weibo. So that was the historical moment. When the MeTalk start to launch, came out with a much better user experience than the QQ for iPhone. Tencent may start to worry about the market, but they don't really they may start to look at the market, but they are not that nervous. They are not that worried yet. But until the overnight success of the TalkBox, that was a huge signal for the Tencent that so it was actually sending a message to Tencent that you don't actually need to fight with the Xinang Weibo. You don't need to spend all your resources actually on the creating a better Tencent Weibo. And even though that sucks, but you need to take your advantages, which was the messaging advantages. And in the 2011, inside the Tencent team, not only WeChat, WeChat was only one of the product launched by the QQ Mail team were in Guangzhou. There were a couple of other teams inside Tencent. They were developing a similar app, just like Kik or MeTalk. So there were around three or four different apps within the Tencent organization, similar to WeChat, similar to Kik, similar to MeTalk. But until the overnight success, when the TalkBox app start to topping the chart, start to become the number one most downloaded app on iOS and Android in the social networking category. Tencent, they start to be serious about this. So we actually went into the user history of the TalkBox, the users. So we can see the registered time of the users, right? And also, the founder of Tencent was Pony Ma, and also the founder of WeChat the founder of WeChat was like Alan Zhang, right? Right. So we all found that Polyma and Alan Zhang's TalkBox account was created like within 1 or 2 weeks after we launched the app. Yeah. So and then those two accounts and those couple accounts within the Tencent head, like Tencent circle, was extremely like active in the first couple of weeks. So they are starting TalkBox app very carefully, and then they are So basically, that was the period of time, and then of course, like all these companies, they all and then so basically the WeChat they launched the 2.0 version. So basically, before the WeChat launched the 2.0 version, the Tencent team, they came to us, said they want to invest, they want to buy out the company. It was because they don't think WeChat can be survive. WeChat can be success. Yeah. So they only think WeChat was an experiment within the Tencent organization. That was because the WeChat 1.0 version, within 5 months, like they launched in January until they launched the 2.0 in May. Within 5 months, they only got 1 million users. Okay? They only reached 1 million users for over 5 months. But at the same time, the TalkBox app, we got like 200,000 users per day, right? So it was a huge difference. So basically, Tencent, even the small circle, the head, even the head, even the top, even the Polyma and like Tony Zhang, they don't think WeChat can be success. So they came to us, they want to buy or they want to invest in the company. But until the May 11th, that was the date, WeChat launched their 2.0 version. On the same day, they launched the push to talk feature. And on the same day, if you look at the history of the App Annie's ranking, you can see there was a hockey stick. Yes, there was a hockey stick like strike for WeChat. So their ranking come out from maybe top 100 app to top 5 within a day because of they launched the push to talk feature, and then within but the Me Talk, they launched the push to talk feature too. Around a month before the WeChat did. So at the time, TalkBox MeTalk, we are not that worried about the WeChat app, even they are growing very fast because of adding the top push to talk feature. But when they launched the 2.1 version, so basically after they launched the 2.0, their ranking come out from top 100 to maybe top 5 to 10. But after they launched the 2.1, which was half a month later, around end of May in 2011, they start to integrate with QQ. So like all those like WeChat users, they can very easy to find their friends they already on QQ. So and they can send an invite to their friends on QQ, and they can very easy to input their contact list like for QQ. When they launch the QQ integration, WeChat become like unbeatable. They are growing way faster than MeTalk and TalkBox. I think in around they start to integrate with QQ end of May, and within a couple months until October, until October. Like in QQ and WeChat, I think already reached to 30 million users, 30 million. But WeChat, but the MeTalk and TalkBox, we both at around under 10 million users. Yeah, so the game that so and then at October, WeChat launched the 3.0. Come with the friends nearby and also the shake feature that you can find a friend or something that you can talk to. You can find a random friend that you can talk to like random people. Yeah, so I just said at the time the only company in China that already success in the messaging space and have all these like user social graphs was WeChat, was Tencent. The Tencent is pretty much the only company that can be success in China with that. Yeah, even though there were other companies just like Heatherm, that was the Chinese Facebook, like Heatherm Huang and other companies, but that wasn't that good as Tencent. So yeah, I'd say QQ was the game changer. So like before WeChat integrate with QQ, WeChat was just like any other the normal players. But when it come with a QQ integration, that was the killer. Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty interesting because if you read something like the Tang Xunzhuan, the official history of Tencent, they tell a very different story, right? So they'll say if you so the book I'm referencing is the official Tencent history,
I know.
Is not in English yet, but I believe will be coming out.
I know.
I'm saying for the
I read it too. Yeah. So basically, I read it too. They mentioned that WeChat was developed by the Guangzhou team of Tencent, which was the QQ Mail team, and then WeChat wasn't a success until the MeTalk copied a Hong Kong company called TalkBox, and then WeChat they follow the MeTalk very fast. Yeah, but there was only those features. Like every other company, they have the same feature, right? So every messaging app on the market in mid 2011, there were like hundreds of like messaging apps. They are exactly the same. They have exactly the same features of everyone else. But the only difference is the QQ, like the contact list. The QQ contact list is the real key. Yeah.
Right. So, in your opinion, like actually Tencent, when they weren't being very innovative company at all. They were always going to win this war. They just had to build a product that was comparable to the other ones in the market, and then use their already massive advantage of owning the desktop messaging experience and allow users to import their social graph into the mobile experience. And it just so happens that that ended up being a product under a different name from a different team, but it was always going to be one of the Tencent teams that did that. It was just a matter of which.
Yeah. Yes, there was actually a very interesting story that I think before we start the TalkBox project, I went to a conference which the Pony Ma was a speaker at the event, and like in his speech, he mentioned that he was very worried about the QQ because QQ was already an empire that he built for over 10 years with like I think but they already like dominate. I think like 80 or 90% of the Chinese market, like on messaging, right? So, but he's very worried about QQ. He's like Polyma. Polyma said he always dream about QQ. I mean the Q, I mean the whole empire of QQ could be could be killed by someone, could be like replaced by someone in overnight. He was because before that, if you remember, there was something called a war of 3Q, which was the 360 start a war with the QQ in, I think, in 2009 or 2000 or 2010. I don't remember, but so basically, so Polymer was worried about QQ could be killed by some other product, like overnight. So he built the whole empire, but maybe killed by someone like overnight. So he said, if that day really happens, he would if that day really happens, he hoped that product could kill QQ, could be a product of Tencent. Could be an internal product of Tencent that could really kill QQ. Right. So if WeChat was anyone else's product, like Tencent will use all their resources, like no matter what, to fight back with that product. Like either it may not be TalkBox or MeTalk, it may be some other products by Sunny, like 360, or maybe Facebook, or maybe Alibaba Baidu. But if there was if there was a product can really start to challenge QQ, Tencent will use all their resources, whatever you can imagine, to fight back with that product. But because of that product, because of WeChat was actually an internal product of Tencent. In the beginning, they didn't actually give that much resources to WeChat until the 2.0, because they see the real growth. Then they actually give whatever they can give, whatever resources they have to the WeChat, including the QQ contact list and also all the QQ's resources. There was actually an internal fight with QQ and WeChat because the QQ team, they don't really want to give all these resources to WeChat team because they are fighting internally. But the Polymer started a war that but the Polymer give whatever like resources they have to WeChat team to fight back with everyone else. Right. So that's why that's how the WeChat can win the war after all. So there was another company I mentioned earlier, the Heatherm Huang, the Chinese Facebook. I think they may, like, other than Tencent, they may the only one else come with very mature like social graph. But they didn't do it well. They didn't catch the opportunity. So I think that London may be the only one they can have a chance to fight with WeChat, but they didn't do. But they didn't do well.
Right. Heatherm Huang, that was run by Wang Xing at the time, probably, right?
No, by Wang Xing was earlier. So they was called Xiaonei Wang. That was before London, and London was acquired, and Xiaonei Wang was acquired by by Qian Xiang, which runs the MOP.com, and then it was acquired by them and changed the name to London. After that.
So you mentioned before, like, did WhatsApp have no what to put this into a global context as this is happening, in other Asian markets, in Hong Kong, Singapore, WhatsApp is really popular and is it exploding across Europe as well at this time, and other many other global markets. And they weren't blocked in China, right? To my knowledge, right? So did they not have any? Why were they not in this race? Why would It's a question that often gets asked about particularly WeChat, but all Chinese platforms. Was it the case that could no company from Silicon Valley be in this race? Why were there no American companies in this?
So the WhatsApp, it wasn't blocked at the time, but it was eventually blocked in China together with LINE and KakaoTalk and TalkBox and all other like non-Chinese messaging apps. They were all blocked in around 2012 or 2013. I don't remember when, but it wasn't blocked because it was still like very small in China, right? So basically, when it was still very small, Chinese government they don't care yet, right? So when the messaging app become bigger in China, like MSN was like once upon a time, the MSN Messenger was actually quite popular in China. They were eating around 20% of the market share of QQ. So they are very popular in China for maybe a year or two, and then it comes with Skype. So Skype was actually a very popular like messaging app, and has a quite significant market share in China for a period of time. But both MSN and Skype, they all have what they call a joint venture operation in China, which was under control of the Chinese government, right? So basically, the contents. So if you download a Chinese version of Skype, it was actually quite different from the Western version with the international version. So it was provided by a joint venture company in China that whatever message you send, they will store on a Chinese server instead of the MSN and Skype servers like overseas. So if you are Westerner, if you are a foreign company who wants to be in the game, it's very tough. So I don't think it's that easy. So LAN, once upon a time, they partner with 360. They partner with Sunny to create a joint venture company in China, try to run a localized version of LAN. That was 2012 or maybe late 2011. I don't remember, but so the outsiders was very difficult to play the game. So the TalkBox was in a very awkward situation because TalkBox was a company from Hong Kong, right? So Hong Kong was part of China, but it was actually separate so it was actually outside the Great Firewall, right? So as a Hong Kong company, we are in a very awkward situation that we can't run a server in China. We can't have our operation in China. So it's very difficult for us to target the Chinese market because because we can only run our service outside China, and Chinese like ISPs usually give very hard time for the foreign like internet services, right? So Chinese users of TalkBox usually like experiencing very significant delay or like a performance issue of using the TalkBox app. So we are not in a fair game, right? So yeah, we are not in a fair game. So being in this game is already very hard, and you are not, and especially like on the infrastructure side, you are not as fair with other Chinese companies. So yeah, you will eventually to lose the game. But like other companies, like MSN messengers and the Skype, what they do is I think the MSN they create a joint venture in China to use Chinese license to run the service, but everything like all the messages they will need to go through the monitoring system of the Chinese and also the curate system, right? And for the Skype, they just sell the license. Yeah, so basically they just license a Chinese company to run their Chinese service. So they don't even touch that thing. They just license all the brand or the technology to a Chinese company to run the service. So if you are a foreign app, if you are not blocked in China yet, it means you are not that big. As soon as you are like becoming popular, you will need to be like localized with a Chinese partner, or maybe create a joint venture company, or you will be banned in China.
Heatherm, how did things work out eventually with TalkBox? You mentioned that the companies eventually wound up, but how did it play out? Once WeChat started taking over, and in your other markets as well, right, outside mainland China.
Yeah. So basically, we made a very big mistake during the time. So it was because when we see the growth of WeChat, we didn't give up the Chinese market yet. We were still putting all our resources on the Chinese market. We were talking to the potential buyers, and we talked to everyone of Tencent's competitor. They may partner with us to fight with Tencent, but that was completely wrong. Because at the same time, other than China market, we were actually the most popular app in some Southeast Asia market. Like in Malaysia, we have 50% of the penetration of the smartphones. That was crazily big. And we were very popular in Taiwan, in Singapore, in Malaysia, in also some of the Middle East countries. We were the number one app. The number one, it's not only the messaging app, the social networking app, it was the number one app in all categories. But we didn't actually put that much intention on those markets. We were ignoring the feedbacks and the requests from the users from those markets. We were still focusing on China. But whatever we spend on China, whatever resources we spend on China was eventually a waste. The more money, the more time, the more resources we put in China, it turned out to be a waste, right? But we made a big mistake, because when we see our growth in China is dropping, we should actually focus more on other markets other than China. But we didn't do it. We were ignoring them. Until half a year later, we completely lost the war in China, like MeTalk and us and everyone else was out of the game, and we start to try to pick up like other markets, the Southeast Asian markets, but it's too late. Because of LAN, the LAN messenger, it come out with a very cute stickers. Like it come out with when it come out with very cute like stickers. Like there was Brown and Connie. They were completely like replacing us. So basically, we were replaced by LAN messenger in those markets like Taiwan, Southeast Asia. So we were lost again. So and then we in China market we were trying to talk to all these potential buyers. Every one of Tencent's competitors, but after half a year, everyone else they realized the WeChat was already like dominating the market. They don't have a chance to fight back. So they also like give us on us too. So end up we didn't sell to anyone. And then we pivot to So in late 2012 and early 2013, we pivot from a consumer messaging app to an like enterprise like messaging app. It may be like Slack or something, but it was quite early. But 2012, 2013, we pivot from consumer messaging to like enterprise messaging. And I didn't tell you the history of TalkBox app. So the TalkBox app was actually a spin-off of a Hong Kong app, like development like consultant agency company. So we were a spin-off company. So our parent company called Green Tomato, they were the biggest like app consultant agency companies in Hong Kong. They have a lot of like enterprises like clients. So after we pivot from the TalkBox consumer app to the enterprise app, so basically the Green Tomato, the parent company, they start to sell the enterprise solutions to those like enterprises. And at the time, the TalkBox team was pretty much like dismissed. So basically at the end of 2012 and early 2013, the team was separated. So we pivot and the team was dismissed. And the service, we didn't actually shut down the service. The service is still running today, but we didn't change or didn't maintain for anything. We just run the server until now. But there were maybe a couple hundred users still use, maybe a couple thousand users still use the TalkBox ad every day, even though it wasn't get like updated for like over the years. But still have some of the users, like maybe a couple hundred or a couple thousand users still use the TalkBox app as of today, every day. So we still get the like support tickets or something until now, but the company was pretty much like shut down, and the service, we only have one server running, and then the team was dismissed. And then fortunately, as I mentioned in the beginning, my new company, the MailTime, like I think half of my team today were the founding team of the TalkBox. So basically, a lot of our old colleagues from the TalkBox team joined my new company. So we have half of the team members were actually originally from the TalkBox team.
Right. So the team lives on together, but still based in Hong Kong, I guess.
We were in the Silicon Valley for a couple of years, and we moved back to Hong Kong late last year because of Trump.
Right.
Yes, thanks to Trump.
Well, Heather, again, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. It was a fascinating conversation looking at some what we might call ancient history of the Chinese internet, but as always, context in history is very important. But before we go, if our listeners want to reach out or to find you online, where can they do that?
Okay, they can. Let me see. They can send me an email. Yeah, my email is heatherm@mailtime.com. HEATHERM There was actually a shorter email. That was H.
Okay. Yeah, we'll make sure to include that in the show notes. Okay. Any social media that you want to plug or anything else?
They can find me on Twitter, which was the Heatherm Huang @Heatherm Huang HEATHERMHUANG.
Perfect. Yeah, and we'll include the email and the Twitter on inside the show notes.
Sure.
Again, thank you, Heather, so much.
No problem. And by the way, there will be an upcoming TV drama about the story of TalkBox, fighting with WeChat and everything else. It's called the Entrepreneurial Edge. The Chinese name is called the 创业时代. It will be on TV. I think early September. It will be a 50 episode of a TV drama, but it's in Chinese. But it will be a very interesting story of. It will be a very interesting. Yeah, so you can call it the Chinese version of Silicon Valley.
So who's going to be playing you? Chris Wu?
Okay. Okay. There were two major Chinese actor and actress. The leading actress was the Angela Baby. She was the most famous the actress in China, and the actor and the lead actor was called Huang Xuan. He's also the most popular Chinese actors now. Yeah, he recently played tons of the movies and TV dramas.
Great. All right. Well, Heather, thanks again. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that's about all the time we have for this edition of China Tech Talk. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, we'd really appreciate it if you left a review on iTunes, or if you're on Pocket Cast or Overcast, you can tap on that star button and it will recommend this episode to your network. And coming up in September, Matthew is organizing the China Chat Conference. It happens every year. I believe this is the third year that it's going on. It is a conference dedicated to digital marketing, in particular WeChat, as you can imagine. It features the leading minds in digital marketing and e-commerce here in China. Featuring some of the people that we've had on the podcast, including Elijah Whaley, CMO of Park Lu, and Thomas Graziani, CEO and founder of Walk the Chat. That's going to be on September 20th and 21st in Shanghai, and the registration link will be in the show notes.